Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. My name is Dr. Ashish Pal and I am a scientist E at Institute of Nanoscience and Technology, Mohali, Punjab. Today I am going to discuss a module which relates to hierarchical structures of protein and peptides under the paper Biotechnology. The objective of the module is to understand different structures of protein, and we look at different hierarchical structure of protein. Like you start with primary structure, how primary structure takes due to some specific factor they get into secondary structure, then how this secondary structure they interact to form tertiary structure, and eventually you get a quaternary structure. So we look into all this structure in a very specific way with respect to non-covalent interaction. What are the interactions which actually are responsible for each of these structures? So that will be our main focus. Other than that, we would also look into the super secondary structure, where a number of secondary structure can be linked together and it can form a particular motif. So we will focus in this module detailed structures of many polypeptide and protein molecules, so that this understanding this, because you need to understand these basics of protein peptide and their interactions, because this will be really useful later on to make nanostructures from these biomolecules. So protein is a very important biomolecules. When we talk about protein, many different important names which comes into our mind. That can be enzyme, receptor, hormones, antibodies. So like, let's say if you talk about enzymes are a protein. They can actually perform any reaction. You talk about hormones, they can perform some specific biochemical reactions. A protein can be also used to regulate the gene expression. And in fact, protein is a large polypeptide chain which can actually fold in a particular different structures. Now if you now go back and look at the function of protein, well, the function of protein can be also based on the segment. There's sometimes protein can be very long to perform its function, sometimes very short sequence of peptides that actually can be also useful. Many of the snake venom and toxins, they can be coming out of very short amino acid fragment or the polypeptide oligopeptides. So if you talk about proteins, what are protein made up of? The basic building block of protein is actually the amino acids, which are linked together to form a chain of oligopeptide. If they are long enough, then it can be polypeptide, and these polypeptides actually can fold into particular arrangement, and then that is something we call protein folding, and then it can form the native structure of protein. This protein can be also denatured using heat or some denaturing agent. Then the native form of the folded protein can be unfolded. So when we look at different types of amino acids which eventually forms protein, that's why they are called proteinogenic amino acids. We see there are different class of proteinogenic amino acids. Among them, the first class is non-polar aliphatic R group, where the simplest amino acid is glycine, where the carbon has 2 hydrogens attached to it, and this is the only achiral and flexible amino acids. Then one hydrogen you can replace with CH3 to have alanine or valine, leucine, methionine, isoleucine. The second one is aromatic R group based amino acids, where you have phenylalanine, tyrosine, tryptophan. There can polar uncharged. In that case, you can have in serine, threonine, cysteine, proline, asparagine, glutamine, or either positively charged in the case of lysine, arginine, histidine, or it can be negatively charged in the case of aspartic acid or glutamic acid. Now we have to remember at the physiological pH, some of these charged amino acid, first of all, this amino acid always stays in zwitter ionic form in the physiological pH. That means NH2 that becomes NH3 plus, and COOH that becomes COO minus. And in the case of the charged amino acid like positively charged amino acid, this side chain also stays in an ammonium group form. and negatively charged R group, that COOH stays in carboxylate form. We have looked into 21 amino acids, and this is something to remember, that our body can synthesize on its own 11 amino acids out of these 21 amino acids, and rest of the amino acids, that there are 10 amino acids, that we have to taken up by nutritions or dietary means. So what I mean to say is that these 10 amino acids, these are called essential amino acids. You need to really get it from nutrients. And when you look into there can be also, other than these 21 proteogenic amino acid, there can be more than 100 other amino acids known. So there are different amino acids, as you see, that there can be hydroxyproline, or there are some kind of other amino acids which are useful for various different biological functions. So let's look at the structure of protein. The first structure of protein, what we look at, is primary structures. That depends on the sequence of amino acids, how two amino acids are bonded. Normally two amino acids, they are bound to each other by this amide bond. It's called peptide bond. And now if you join together, let's say in this example there are 5 amino acids, they are joined together. So one particular end is called C-terminal end, where that's where the carboxylic acid part is, and the other end is called N-terminal, where you have NH2 group. So when we talk about secondary structure, we talk about how is the segment of the peptide backbone, they orient in the space. So this amide bond in peptide, they are shorter than any conventional CN single bond. That has to do with the double bond character. Not only the length gets reduced because of this double bond character, this also reduces the free rotation around the CN bond. So there is a rotational barrier, and because of that we can have two rotamer, that is cis and trans. Normally trans rotamer is more stable. Other than this omega, which is the torsion angle related to this peptide bond, there are two more important torsion angle, that is phi and chi. These three torsion angles determines the secondary structure of the protein. Now normally, as I said, trans rotamer is more stable, and you can see the conformation in the case of normal all the peptides. If your peptide have more proline content into it, so proline, in the case of proline, the trans form is only 4 times stable than the cis form. So in proline based peptide you can actually see also cis proline based conformer. Now we discuss a very important graph called Ramachandran plot that was given by Professor G.N. Ramachandran from India, and where he showed that in this plot phi and chi has been plotted, and he demonstrated that not most of the combinations of phi and chi are not allowed because of the steric collision of the side chain with the backbone. So only few possible combinations are allowed, and he then calculated the angles corresponding to those allowed conformations, and he showed in Ramachandran plot those area. And we can see there are only 3 areas where it is allowed, and you can see in the right top quadrant you can have left-handed alpha helix, or the left bottom quadrant you can have right-handed alpha helix, whereas in the top but the left quadrant you can have this beta sheet which can be parallel or anti-parallel or collagen helix. So we will slowly get to know about these different secondary interactions. One important thing is to note is that glycine doesn't have any steric constraint, and proline has its phi fixed at 60 degree. Next we look at one of the secondary structure which is very famous and very prevalent, and this has been, the structure of it was solved by Linus Pauling. He suggested that this alpha helix is a right-handed alpha helix, and it has 3.6 amino acid per turn. This has both phi and chi negative, and it forms hydrogen bonding involving 13 atoms. So you can also write 3.6 13 helix, which is known as alpha helix. There are also other kinds of helix which are available, also known, which can be 310 helix or 4.416 helix, are known as pi helix. One important thing of this helix structure is that since they have this hydrogen bonding between carbonyl and also the NH group, there is a dipole moment generation, and the helix have dipole moment in a particular direction. Different helices. Here we actually compare different types of helices. We see in case of alpha helices, it is per turn 3.6, or but the 3.10 helix, it's actually 3 amino acid residues, or in pi helix it involves 4.4 amino acid residues. And we see, if we compare the pitch of alpha helix and 310 helix, we see the pitch of the 310 helix is little higher than this alpha helix pattern. And you can see here the H bonding pattern. The normally this carbonyl of alpha helix, they actually bind to the NH of fourth residue of amino acids, whereas in 310 helix it is one particular carbonyl of one amino acid binds to NH of the amino acids which are either preceded or by 3 units. Similarly, in the pi helix it is I plus 5 equals to I, that is the hydrogen bonding pattern. 2D representation of alpha helix. You know that drawing alpha helices by hand, it is very difficult if you don't have idea about 3 dimensions. To solve this problem, scientists have tried to look at 2D representation of these 3D structures, and this is given by this helical wheel, and the helical wheel can actually represent a helix by projection of this all this C alpha backbone structure down the helix axis. And you can see a typical 3-dimensional alpha helix is very difficult to draw, but if you look at through this helical wheel, things becomes much easier. But you can also look at and compare here the ideal alpha helix and 310 helix. You know, alpha helix is like core, if you look at it, is offset squarish, but in the case of 310 helix you can see that it is triangular, and you can also see that 310 helix is much more compact here. Well, there are also other representation, 2D representation of alpha helices. That is, one of them is Venetian diagram, which is able to show the relative location of the amino acid in a alpha helix regardless of how long it is. So this is, you can see, this is a pretty long peptide sequence, and normally it starts from the N terminus on the edges, and eventually as you go towards C terminus, it comes like, it's like a mosquito coil, and it comes in the center. And most interesting thing is that you can see, if you represent this way, the hydrophobic amino acids and hydrophilic amino acid, they sit opposite to each other in the Venetian diagram. So this you can actually see all the red marked amino acids are sitting on one side, and the blue marked amino acids, which are hydrophilic in nature, they are sitting on the other side. Experimental determination. Next, we look at how we can experimentally determine whether it is alpha helix or some other kind of secondary structure. So for that, we can do X-ray crystallography. That's how it has been solved by Linus Pauling. We can also do NMR. That from NMR, you can actually do nuclear Overhauser effect for this adjacent turn, the interaction between these proton or other molecule. We can also do circular dichroism, and it shows very characteristic peak at 208 nanometer or 222 nanometer for alpha helix. Definitely for beta sheet or some other kind of random coil, we have different CD signature. And we can also look at cryo-TEM. Next secondary structure we look at is beta sheet, where in this case we can see that the beta sheet arrangement due to hydrogen bonding can happen in 2 different modes, can be parallel or anti-parallel, and normally beta sheet can happen for very short segment of peptides, and they are allowed in Ramachandran plot in the upper left quadrant. And in beta sheet, often you can have beta substitution, but in beta sheet you don't find proline and glycine. Anti-parallel versus parallel beta sheet. In this slide, we differentiate anti-parallel and parallel beta sheet. In the case of anti-parallel beta sheet, we see both the chains, their orientation is opposite to each other. So one chain is running from N terminus to C terminus, the other chain is running N terminus to C terminus in a other direction. And if we look at the hydrogen bonding pattern, they are not equally spaced. So two hydrogen bonding can be, the distance between them can be narrow, the next one would be, the space will be wide, again narrow, wide, so it goes like that. And in Ramachandran plot, if you look at the, in both the stays in the upper left quadrant, but the magnitude of the phi and psi is more in this case. When you talk about parallel, in that case, both the chain, polypeptide chain, they run parallelly. Both of them are running N to C terminus. And in this case, the hydrogen bonding pattern, you see the space between each hydrogen bonds are equal. And Ramachandran plot, they are allowed, but their magnitude of phi and psi is lower. Next, we look at a different type of secondary structure called loop. This loop is very important because they connect two adjacent beta strands or alpha helix. And normally proline and glycines are prevalent in this kind of secondary structure. There can be two different types of beta bend. It can be type 1 or type 2. Now it depends on the conformation of those amino acids, the C alpha phi psi values. Based on that, these type 1 and type 2 beta bend are different. And the loop region which connects two adjacent anti-parallel beta strand, they are called hairpin loop. If you look at this example of beta hairpin, you will see the beta hairpin is actually populated by proline and glycine unit. So now that we have known a lot this beta sheet interactions, then we also know two different beta sheet actually, and then alpha helix, and then this loop or beta turn. Now there can be something called super secondary structure, which is a collection of these secondary structures which are linked together in close proximity, and it can have a definite motif, and sometimes these motifs are very important for performing very specific role. So you can have something like beta sheet, then alpha helix, and beta sheet again motif, and you can also have two beta sheets which are connected by a beta turn. Like that, you can also have something called EF motif, where you have two helix, they are connected by a loop region, and different motif, different of this super secondary structure, they have definite function towards it. Super secondary structure. So the first super secondary structure we look at, that is helix loop helix motif. Here two helices are connected by a loop, and these are quite prevalent in, and they are very important super secondary structures. Like it can also be involved in binding DNA, or it can be involved in binding metal ion like calcium ion. And the one example is calmodulin, where you can see the calcium ion is bound to different amino acids from helix E or helix F. So this is also called EF motif, and binding this calcium with this helix unit and also with the loop region, it changes its total overall structure. We look at, that is hairpin beta motif. Here there are two anti-parallel beta strand, they are connected by a loop region, and this kind of super secondary structure is prevalent in trypsin inhibitor in bovine, or there is a snake venom, irabutoxin. That's where you can also find this hairpin beta motif. A super secondary structure we look at is alpha beta motifs, where one helix is actually flanked by beta sheets, and this is found in triacephosphate isomerase protein. It's an enzyme, and you can see a number of these beta alpha beta motif. So now if we look at the protein's hierarchical structure, we have already discussed primary structure of protein, which is nothing but the formation of this peptide bond by the sequence, and then we looked into the secondary structure based on the allowed torsion angles, and that means can be alpha helix or beta sheet, or can be a loop. Next we have looked into the super secondary structure, but now most importantly we would like to look at tertiary structure and quaternary structure to have the functional protein. Now, what is tertiary structure? Tertiary structure refers the way entire protein molecule coils into overall three-dimensional shape, and how is the interactions between two secondary structures or amino acids in the secondary structure. They are far away from the in the sequence, but still they come together in the three-dimensional space and overall gets a three-dimensional functional structure. And the interactions which are involved in tertiary structures, they can be disulfide bond between two cysteine, which is a covalent bond formation here. That's why the energetic energy involved is high, 200 kilojoule per mole. Or it can be hydrogen bonding or ionic bonding or hydrophobic interactions between two helices. You have probably noticed that from the Venn diagram that in the helices, hydrophobic and hydrophilic, they actually segregate into the sides they sit, and then it happens so that due to this hydrophobic interaction, this interior core of the helix, they actually collapse together. Look into the quaternary structure of protein, where it is the interaction between different protein subunits which interact with each other and arrange themselves in a larger aggregate of protein complex. And this is also just like tertiary structure, it is stabilized by disulfide bond, hydrophobic interaction, hydrogen bonding, and salt bridge. So let's summarize the module. So what we have learned in this very important module is that we have learned different structures of protein, the different hierarchical structures. So we started with the primary structure of the protein, then we went on and looked at the different torsional angle. We have looked at this phi psi plot, which is a famous Ramachandran plot, and we got to know which are the phi and psi they are allowed, and based on that we can have a definite secondary interactions or secondary structures of protein, and why a particular secondary structure can have only a certain section of amino acid. We all got to know about it. We looked at now different secondary structure, alpha helix, what are the kinds of amino acid that can actually be prevalent in alpha helix. We looked into also beta sheet, where in beta sheet which are the amino acid and in which mode, like antiparallel or parallel, what are the modes, what is the hydrogen bonding pattern. So these are the things we learned from these secondary structures. And not only that, then we looked at thoroughly different super secondary structure when we combine these different secondary interaction in a different way with different secondary structures, how different motif formation can happen. And lastly, then we looked into in three dimension how this entire secondary structure or super secondary structure, which are far apart, they can actually come together by specific means like hydrogen bonding or covalent bonding, even in the thiol disulfide bond formation or hydrophobic effect, and they form very nice tertiary structure. And then we also looked at the last hierarchical structure, more complex, that is the quaternary structure. I hope this will be very useful when we really look at more in details different nanostructure design from these different hierarchical versions of protein and peptides. Thank you.